Hello friends, and welcome to episode 214 of the Noclip podcast. It's a Crewcast, only 3 of us this time though. Jesse is... What do we think Jesse's doing? For Jeremy, first of all, what do you reckon? If you were to just spin the Canadian Wheel of Fortune, where does Jesse land on this beautiful Tuesday morning?
I think this is the day that he suns his butthole to regenerate his chi.
Yes, that's a good... Yes, face... Where does the sun rise in Canada? It's different there, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not allowed to know, actually.
Frank, what do you think Jesse's up to today?
Ice fishing.
Oh, nice. Okay.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
That's really good. Does he have one of those tents around him as well?
Well, I don't
You know?
know. I think probably a Tim Hortons booth, and then you sit and you just throw the cast outside a window. Yeah, I don't know. It's cold. It's cold.
How you doing, Frank? You woke up about 2 minutes ago.
No, I woke up like an hour and a half early. I was like, wow, I'm up early. And then I'll just sleep a little bit more, and I accidentally slept past the recording time. So I'm so sorry. Well, you know, anyone listening, it's irrelevant,
cool.
but...
Exactly. They don't care.
Yeah,
Nobody cares.
So I feel like shell shocked in the middle of the night. Like, what's going on? Oh God!
Great. So this is a nightmare you've ended up in.
Yeah.
This is my fault we record this very early in the week, which is why last week I had like 3 hours of Kingdom Come Deliverance to talk about, and today I have a week of it to talk about. And also why news-wise we're a little bit early. This is my fault. We used to record this at Wednesday at noon. Then I was like, hey, you know what's better at Wednesday at noon? Tuesday at 10 a.m. And you guys were all like, sure, Danny, that's a great idea.
Wiping the sleep from our eyes.
Exactly. I think the main reason, there's 2 reasons. One, I was like playing with the idea of us getting this out early for patrons or something, which then I realized we'd just be spamming them every week and nobody really wants that. And then I was like, oh wait, all the Champions League football is on at Wednesday at noon and I keep missing all these games. So it was very selfish. So I don't know. We'll probably swap it to later in the week or later in the day. Or we'll just get them out earlier for people. It all depends. We'll have to ask our good Canadian friend Jesse, who is not here at the moment. He's up to some shenanigans. I'm sure he'll tell us about it next week. And there's not all that much news. Maybe because it's Tuesday afternoon. I don't know. Or Tuesday morning. But there's not all that much news. We do have some games to talk about. Kingdom Come Deliverance, aforementioned Kingdom Come. I'm still clicking those cookies as well. We got 78 billion a second running at the moment, so progress is being made. Jeremy's played the demo for House of Necrosis, which looks very interesting. And Frank's been dabbling with various forms of fighting, both new and old. Although the old one is also new in a different way. We'll talk about that in a second. But first of all, massive thanks to all of our incredible Battle Pass holders. It's-a me, Ferrario, Penelope Hayes, Senator Armstrong, Eamon Slattery, Harry Flanagan, Juice. I love juice. I love a can of juice in the morning, you know? Spray some juice. I'm about to go on a date and I just put some juice underneath my neck there. Arno, Richard Matherson, Matt Pearson, James Brown, Mark Rojas, Tucker Morgan, David McGarry, Sven Huster, Pez, Aaron L. White, Ewan Nate, Tim Robinson. Have you seen a new movie there's a new trailer?
I didn't see the trailer. I saw the poster. Tim Robinson?
Yes.
And Paul Rudd?
And Paul Rudd. It's called Friendship.
I'll see it.
It looks... Okay, you've only seen the poster. Imagine what type of movie it is.
Okay, it's it's a movie about... It's 2 adult men who are both friendless, and they become friends, and it's a movie about how hard it is to make friends as an adult, and awkward, quirky hijinks ensue. Very
good. I would say you are... This movie basically goes in that direction, the trailer at least, and then it sort of has a bit of English on it, and it does the sort of it goes more in the Tim Robinson direction.
Okay.
Of surreal weirdness.
Interesting.
So that's your Tim Robinson update, brought to you by Tim Robinson. Sorry, Tim. Forrest Pruitt, Jonathan Kremen, Eric Hamilton Schneider, Hammerlard, Zachary Snader, Alex Goucher, George Sakotis, Jacob Godserve, Entheogen, Tohir Tiliev, Ryson, and presumably one of my cats that just smashed the door open. Hello, Puka.
Let's see.
Puka's not a kitten anymore. She's a big girl.
Oh, look how big she is.
She doesn't want to get picked up, though. Why'd you come in here on podcast? And you see the light on outside the door? There's no light. Massive thanks to all of our Battle Pass holders. And to all of our patrons over at patreon.com/noclip who fund our wild and wacky endeavors into the world of video game documenting, which we'll talk a little bit at the end of the show. I'm going to close that door. Give me a second. You guys just talk about whatever your favorite Tim Robinson movie is. I don't know.
Has Tim Robinson been in... I know he does a TV show. What does Tim Robinson do? Frank, do you know Tim Robinson's work?
Well, I know he was like a writer, like, comedian, writer. He had a show before I Think You Should Leave called Detroiters, and then I Think You Should Leave pop up, and I feel like he's probably had cameos and stuff.
Okay, cool. He's like a
Sean
TV
O'Malley's
guy, right?
in the trailer for Friendship as well.
Who is?
Sean O'Malley.
Oh, Connor O'Malley.
Sorry, Connor O'Malley. Sorry.
Sean O'Malley's that's the lad from down the street.
It's actually a UFC fighter called Sugar Sean O'Malley, who is... He sort of looks like the Island Boys a little bit. He's a sort of a very lanky white guy with eccentric hair.
I love when
tattoos.
I love when a professional fighter has a nickname like Sugar. It's like, like if your name was like Petunia, and then you're like, oh, Petunia. I mean, how big? And then you beat him as like 7'6" and huge.
Sugar Sean O'Malley looks like you hit randomize on the character creation screen. You should Google Sugar Sean O'Malley and see.
All right, let's see.
See how accurate this lines up. Which RPG would he be in? That's
my first thought was Cyberpunk or Saints Row.
Right. Yes, Saints Row. Saints Row is a good one.
Yeah, he does look like if he was in the cutscene, it would ruin my immersion. You know what I'm saying?
He'd be like the sort of when you fuck up the character on purpose so that the cutscenes make even less sense.
Yeah.
Like Fallout 4 kind of.
Yeah, like a serious beat happens in the story, and then it cuts to Sugar Sean O'Malley, and you're like, oh, I can't take this seriously. Look at this guy.
Look at this numpty. Speaking of role-playing games, I've been playing a very good one. Kingdom Come Deliverance II, the second one of these. Did not really play much of the first one. Cannot put down the second one. Yeah. Have you guys touched this thing at all? Do you have any interest in this thing at all?
I do want to play it.
I seem intimidated by it. I'm assuming it's a giant like story crawling RPG. I mean, I love The Witcher 3, but that's my closest context to it.
I'd say it's not too mechanically like more complex than The Witcher 3. I think that's actually a pretty good proxy for it, I'd say. So when I played last week, I'd only really like just gotten into the open world. As a relatively long intro level that sort of sets up the stakes for the characters. You're playing the same guy who played in the first one, but obviously now he's not just like a peasant blacksmith's son. He's somewhat involved in not royalty, whatever the word they call people who are not serfs in the Middle Ages. And he's but they have to there has to be an event that basically puts him back down sort of a little bit. So it's actually quite a funny one. It's I want to spoil too much about the story, but you basically something happens where no one believes that you were who you said you were, and they just think you're a random dude who's turned up, and you sort of have to build up your social connections from start, and your money as well. You're basically skinless at this stage. And yeah, it drops you in this open area where you can walk around and interact with people, and what it kind of reminds me of is like, this is why the Elder Scrolls games need to like hit reset and like do a new engine and come up with new ideas, because the stuff that's in here is so like cool, and the game is like doing things where I'm like, is it going to know that I did this, or is this now going to happen in a way that, like, when you're playing Elder Scrolls, like creation engine games now, and you kind of know which way the logic works and the ways in which you can kind of break it and do things like that. And this game is kind of like, no, we covered our asses on that, or this is going to happen. Or I had a really amazing moment yesterday. It was the most, I've never felt this emotion in a video game. I was embarrassed. I was like so humiliated when this happened. I was on a little journey, on a little mission where my blacksmith, I got a job at a blacksmith because I'm trying to, for reasons that I won't get into, but I chose down this path of a blacksmith. I'm going on all these quests for this blacksmith. I've also been smithing a lot. There's like pretty involved games where you're like making horseshoes and swords and shit, and you can sell those swords, or you can use those swords or whatever, and you have to like bang the thing in the right spot and heat it the right amount and come back, and when you're making your potions, you have to go to like this little alchemy bench and like pour the right amount in and put it near the fire for 2 seconds and do, it's like the lock picking game in Elder Scrolls was like 3 times longer. It's like that's everything in this game is like way more. Even though there is a lock picking game in this game as well, and it is way more involved. But I was on one of the things I had to do was involved going to this landowner in a different part of the map and helping him out with this quest because some goods went missing. And I ended up going on the job with the guy the actual landowner himself, who's like, prestigious and, people look up to him and yada yada. You don't really get to spend time with these types of people. Even in this game, you really don't. Like the human scale nature of this game is so well informed. And you were basically talking to peasants all the time. Even when I talked to the bailiff, he's sort of like short with me, and like none of my speech checks work on him because he's like, well, you're like you smell like shit. Like stuff like that matters. If you haven't bathed or you smell or you've blood on you or like your clothes are shitty, like your checks just don't work. Like if I'm wearing night stuff, then I can intimidate people. But when I'm walking around in my shitty half-broken cuirass and like only wearing pants and no chainmail, they're just like, then you go, I'm gonna kill you, and then you go, shut up, back to you. So it's really cool. So you're kind of like, it's this great like social level that I'm at that I can't. So I'm really excited that I'm on this like trip with this guy, and it's him and his like second in command basically, who's the guy who's warm to me, and I'm on this trip. And so we're just on our horses and going towards the other town, and he's talking about this fight I was in, and then he's like, all right, let's have a fight then. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to fight you. You're an old man, and you're also a rich old man, and if I might knock you out, and then I'll be in trouble or something. So we have a fist fight in a pig pen on the way there, because he's not allowed to fight people, but he's out of sight of his town or whatever. So we have a fight. He beats the shit out of me, this old man does. I completely mess it up. I'm like humbled, but he kind of is enamored to me. He's like, don't worry about it. You're going to be, thanks for fighting with me. And, and we're on like sort of, chatting away on speaking terms. We get to this town, and he wants me to go in and talk to the bailiff, actually, because he's like, if I go in or if my second in command goes in, he's going to know I'm here, and then he's going to come out and talk the ear off me, and I'm not going to be able to, I don't want to talk to this guy. So you go in and talk to him. And this is like the starter town that you're in right at the start. So I'm like, great, I know all these people. This will be great. These are my homies. I know all these folks. So I jump off the horse, and I walk up to the bailiff's office, and the fucking guard at the door goes, we've been looking for you. And I'm like, what the fuck? You don't play smart with me. I know what you did. Some things have gone missing, and you were spotted in. And I'm like thinking back, and I go, oh fuck! About like 4 hours earlier, these 2 minstrels in a bar got me drunk, and they convinced me to steal a loot from this guy's fucking house, and I did it so badly. I like walked in the room while he was there, and he was like, get out of here. And the game basically tells you at a certain point, like, people, you don't really need to be seen if you like steal something. If somebody sees you trespassing like close to the time where you stole something, they're going to intuit that it was you. Like they're not stupid. This isn't like Skyrim where you can put buckets on everyone's heads and they're not going to know that you fleeced them all. So they were like, stuff's gone missing. And thankfully I'd given that loot to the minstrels, who then immediately broke a string on it. So now it's my new quest is to go find some fucking strings for this loot. Yeah, so they were like, he and I like, this is all happening within earshot of the guy, right? The like king, the lord, who's like just walked down with me. And I'm like, okay, I can probably get away with this if like he didn't notice, but And then the guy's like, all right, do you have any more goods on you stole? And I was like, I don't think so. And he searches me and he's like, okay, nothing else. That's great. And he was like, okay, here's the fine. And then my character auto replies, but I don't have that much money. I can't pay the fine. So he goes, okay, then looks like it's the stockades for you. So they stick me in the stockades, and then this like automatic sort of video style thing plays where I'm in the stockades. They're all throwing, my head and my arms are stuck in those little wooden planks, and they're throwing fruit at me. And then it's like rain, it like cuts to a rainstorm and then it cuts to that evening and I'm like, oh my fucking God. Like that guy just told me to do the job. And now I'm in this thing. And I'm like, I probably broke the quest, or hopefully he's still there. You know what I mean? Like I'll go back. But it like goes nighttime, next day, later that day. And it's like halfway through the next day and the guy comes over and takes me out of the stockades. So I walk over because I'm like, oh, hopefully the guy's still there. And the game gets it half right. It broke a little bit. I see the two guys, but they're on their horses walking out of town. So the game probably just did it not fast enough. You know what I mean? The stockades was literally right beside where they were before the quest started. I could see them from it. So I look over and they're leaving. So I run after them, and the guy was like, "Where the fuck were you?" I'm like, "Oh my God." And they were like, "We went and did it ourselves because you didn't turn up. We were waiting out there forever. Fucking go away." And then they leave. So obviously the game wanted me to not see them leave, I guess. And then the quest was like, fucked. And I'm standing there like basically like covered in fucking vegetables. And I fucked this quest and I felt so embarrassed because I was so invested in this relationship with this guy, and like the game, holds on to all that shit. So then later on, I have to wait for them to get back home, basically, the quest. So I'm off doing my jobs and doing that. And then the next day I go visit them and they will not stop ribbing me about it. They're just like, "You useless. Where were you?" Like they were asking, "Where were you?" And I had to like make something up. I was like, "I got lost." It was, "What do you mean you got lost? How could you get lost? It's a small town." They're like, and my guy is just like, because he's an idiot and he doesn't have much speech checks, he's like, "I don't know. I didn't know where I was." So the guy now thinks I'm a fucking idiot because of this. And I was just like, it's shit like that like when I remember playing Oblivion for the first time and I was like, oh my God, these games are so like, they remember shit like that, but like they kind of don't anymore. You know, you play Starfield or something, you know maybe it's just because I know how those games work and you have an idea of how the logic is going to work, but it was so refreshing for that to happen because when I was in the stockades, I was like, this is humiliating, but thankfully the game probably won't know that this happened, and they didn't know I was in the stockades. That might have been a level too hard, but the fact that they were like, "You useless bastards," like you couldn't go in and just talk to this guy. We waited outside. I absolutely loved it. It was so good.
That like social sandbox elements, like especially embedded into a game that's not just social. Like if it's, there are games like The Sims and stuff that are more about sort of like relationships and obviously not that kind of reactivity. But like I love when a game you're like, I'm an adventurer. I'm like going out. I'm doing quests. I'm getting armor and swords, and then you end up in these like weird misadventures because it feels so much more emergent when it's like you're not going out and trying to get into shit. It's an emergent property of you like, oh, I'll like steal the loot because like I want to do this quest. I want to like get money. I want to buy swords with it and stuff. And then you end up being this sort of like tragicomic figure who's like the town fool. That's incredible. I also, it makes me think of, I've been thinking a lot about this recently that in Kenshi, one of the like favorite anecdotes of people who play Kenshi, Kenshi, for people who don't know Kenshi, it's like a third person top down sandbox RPG basically. But you can be arrested by slavers in Kenshi, and they'll drag you off to like a slaving town and put you in a cage, and then basically your only recourse is to survive and slowly learn lockpicking so that you can escape. But there's something very fun about like an anti-power fantasy in sandbox games where, because so many games are everywhere you go, it's like, the hero is here. Like
100%.
It's so fun to have the opposite there. You're just like a piece of shit. And everyone's like, you're like a fuck up and everyone knows it. There's something very like, I don't know. It's like when you're a kid and you're like playing make believe with your friends and you're like, I want to be like, I'm like the prisoner now or something. Like it's fun to play a disempowered role in a role playing scenario like that.
Dude, I was maybe like, I don't know, 6 hours into this game. I've gotten a decent sword. I'm like, I think I ended up, how did I get that kit? I think a guy, that's what it was. I saw a guy over a dead body somewhere because there's all these like emergent events that they kind of pepper in when you're walking around, of course. But it's weird. They seem oddly dynamic. Like there was one stage I was walking along and you'll just find like I guess when people were traveling through the lands in these places, they'd set up tents sometimes along the roads or maybe in the bushes somewhere while they're on their travel. So sometimes you'll be going through a place that you were before, and then suddenly there's a little camp there, and there people are like, hi, and then sometimes they'll be cool and you can play dice with them and shit. I love playing dice. It's fucking awesome. Or they might be antagonistic or whatever. But one of the first things that happened to me, I met some guy who was like looting a body or something, and I ended up, besting him in combat, and I stripped all his shit off him, and I hadn't damaged it so bad that it was useless, and I was like, okay, I got myself some armor now, not so bad. So I had like, it's not good gear, but it's like I've got something. And the thing happens where I'm walking down the street, and suddenly I hear some shouting up ahead. So I go in the forest and I sneak around, and I have a little perk that lets me, so I've got some stealth stuff, so I'm able to hide in the woods and stuff. And it's two guards, like sort of official guard guys, shaking down a traveler who's going through the woods and like about to rob him, and I think he's not giving them money, so it looks like it's about to escalate. So I, of course, what do you do in every fucking RPG when that happens? You run out with your sword, and you're like, I'm gonna save the fucking day, and they fucking destroyed me because I'm like, I don't. Like it's like, what would you do in real life if two cops?
Yeah, two cops were shaking down.
Like, would you intervene? Like, you have to be up to doing it. And in this game, it's like, yeah, it's so good. Like sometimes I'll be in a part of the land, and my guy will start getting tired and like fucking his eyes closing and yawning, and I'm like, there's nowhere around here to sleep. I don't know what to do. I have to like walk all this and then like I slept in a stable one night, in someone's stable, and then like the nighttime thing comes up, and at 4:00 in the morning someone wakes me up and they're like, what are you doing in here? Get out of my fucking stable before and the way it like handles a lot of this stuff is if you trespass, if there are certain areas, if you're trespassing, they'll immediately be like, what the fuck are you doing? But a lot of stuff, because you can accidentally in this game, like a lot of the time, wander into the wrong place maybe, or not know the social cue, and there's this little like marginalia looking rabbit that is used as your if you're in the wrong place, or if somebody's looking for you, there's like a little rabbit looking at the top of the screen, and if somebody's chasing you out of somewhere or whatever. So people will do that. They'll like, if they find you in a part of their land maybe, or maybe in a barn or something you're not supposed to be in, they'll chase you out before it escalates. And as long as you don't do anything, you'll be fine. But if you go back again, they're going to start calling people. Or like if you walk around town without a lantern, like the night watchman will fucking chew you out. Like, what are you doing?
Is that illegal? You need a lantern?
It's illegal.
What?
It's literally illegal at night
because they think you're up to no good, or what?
Exactly. Oh. The implication is if you don't have a lantern. So even guys on horses are running around who've got lanterns on, which I'm not sure how accurate that is. But yeah, in the towns, they're 100. Yeah, so they have a night watchman. You'll see him walking around. You can't miss the fucker. He's got a big lantern on him.
This is like inadvertently like an art game about being harassed by the police.
Yes.
This is like you're sleeping on a park bench and you're getting like roasted. You don't have money to buy a lantern, so the cops are fucking finding a reason to fuck with you.
Totally, yeah, exactly. All the benches are like have like spikes on them, so you can't sleep on it properly. And
it really does feel like an authentic experience if you were a time travel and you just had to like make it back. It's like you don't know the custom. Like all these stories,
totally.
Like I didn't know the lantern rule. That's good to know. Yeah, like, that's helpful.
I'm picturing Larry David, like he's like, I didn't know. He's like a curb situation.
I can't afford a lantern.
Yeah, where do I get a lantern?
It's class, and like I keep like the other thing I love is that like all your checks, like some of them work. You have to be smart though, but it's like if it's a guard, there's no way you're gonna like intimidate them down, right? But if it's like some dweeb in like a peasant, like maybe you'll get away with it. You also have the chance to be really evil if you want to. Like there are quests that I was on this quest to save somebody for a while, and there was no. It was clear that I was being a virtuous person because this is somebody who is outside of society a little bit, and everyone kind of hated them, and they were actually being victimized in a situation. So I was being the good sort of person, the virtuous hero in this scenario. And then at the end, it curved around to where somebody involved in this on the side that I was helping with just wanted me to murder a person. They were like, the only way you're going to solve this is by killing this person. And I'm like, I'm not gonna fucking cold-bloodedly murder someone for you. Like that's I'm doing this to like protect you. What and they make a good argument for it, and I'm like, and they make a good moral argument and a good sort of pragmatic argument for killing this guy. But I'm like, I don't want to kill someone. I'm like, let me talk to him. And I go talk to him, and of course his motivations for hating this person go like run super deep, and he's had them for like 30 years. So he's like, go away. Like, no, I just tried to do a speech check, and he's like, no, what are you talking about? Like, you young idiot. Like, no, I'm not going to do. So it's left me in a position where I'm like, the only way to complete this thing is to kill this guy. And I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to like leave this quest to be. It's so cool.
That's such an interesting way of doing morality checks, is like, instead of there being an obvious sort of like Knights of the Old Republic binary where it's like, do you kill the younglings or not? Like having it be where someone sends you to kill a guy and then the guy has his own motivations and you're left in sort of like an awkward scenario where you only have a certain option. I played a little bit of Neverwinter Nights recently for the first time. And I think it was a couple weeks ago. I think it was Barbarian in Dungeons and Dragons rules that they use. If you become lawful instead of chaotic in your alignment, you can't level up. And then if you become a paladin, if you deviate from lawful, you can't level up. So I think I'm pretty sure it was Barbarian, but whatever the class I rolled that you couldn't level up if it became lawful, every time someone would be like, oh, my children are, I'd be like, no, fuck you, because I was so afraid to soft lock myself. So I just had to go around being a dick to everyone. And it was like, it was funny because it's a less elegant morality solution to have to do that, just to fuck everyone over because you're afraid to become lawful. But it did lead to some very funny emergent responses where I was forced by the mechanics to have to roleplay as a certain type of person. And like, I was like, how do I be chaotic without being evil? As like, I could like help random people, but if someone asks me for help, like I can't help them because that's lawful if I'm asked to do it. So I could only do random acts of kindness.
Oh my god! Yeah. You have to go. You have to have like one village where everyone hates you, where like you sort of train in the off season.
Yeah.
You know?
They're the Omelas child who I have to take out all of my fucking chaotic
Anger
disposition on.
One of the other things I really like this as well is that like I feel like in a lot of RPGs, if you pick the like not overtly confident, but like quietly, pragmatically, kind of somewhat objectively kind path, that the doors will open for you. And like if you're a good person who's like willing to listen to people and stuff like that. And a lot in this game I found that does not work. Like it works with some people, sure, but some people like need to be talked to aggressively, or some people are lying to you and you don't. And so if you do that, you're just falling deeper into their trap. Like there's no, like to me, what I feel it reminds me of is like being a teenager and like not having the sort of speech skills or, you know, person interacting skills that adults have, and not knowing when someone is taking advantage of me or throwing their weight around or lying or and having to sort of match that in some way, like a detective would or whatever. It's really interesting. Like I've trusted people to act a certain way, and then they've done something else, and I'm like, well, yeah, I guess that I just assumed it was a video game and they do the thing, but no, you're right, they were acting that way. So it's really cool. It's like it's breaking apart the sort of norms of what I expect in these games in terms of like how you're supposed to figure out things in conversations, or otherwise, and it's unraveling. I'm hoping there's like continues to be these layers of you know these sort of sub layers, like under the surface layers that impact it. And the quests are really good. The writing's really good. The characters are really believable and interesting. And like a lot of the time, you're doing, they're novel quests and they're interesting, but some of the times you're just like doing things you wouldn't, like go to this place and do that. And, you know, even the fast travel in this game is really neat, where the map is beautiful. It's kind of like the Pentiment map a little bit. It looks like a sort of a manuscript. You zoom in and then it gets more detailed in the villages, and there's like marginalia written on it and stuff. But if you fast travel, you can only fast travel the cities. Time passes, obviously, but it goes to the map and it has you walking, like it shows the path and you're walking, and then random events can happen. So you can be accosted by somebody, or, you know, you come across something, and then, you know, you can be like, oh, I'll press E to flee, and you have a 50% chance, and if you do, you'll flee. Or you can press like, I talk to them, and it'll cut back to the game, and you'll be there, and there'll be a person there. I had one absolute moron come up to me and go like, I found a map for treasure, but I can't find where the treasure is. Do you want to look at this map? And I take the map from him, and you can immediately just be like, I'm keeping this map. But he was such an idiot, and I've not great speech skills, but there was one check for like, this isn't a map, this is just a scribble. And so I just said that to him, and he was like, oh, I really thought it was a map, and he walked away.
A poor guy.
Like, yes, finally. I've bested somebody in intellect.
You found someone dumber than your character finally,
Exactly.
and you're like, everyone has fucked me over. Now's my time.
Your character kind of speaks like a dumbass too. He's kind of got a little bit of, he's a little bit, I don't know what I'm doing. My lord, yeah. Join the army, they said. See the world, they said. Yeah, it's fucking good shit, man.
That's cool. I'm really excited to play it. I feel like it fills the niche that I really like the Elder Scrolls games, and if you go back and watch, there's like a mini doc on the making of Oblivion, and I think there's one on Morrowind as well. But they talk a lot about, especially I feel like Oblivion, the doc that they did around that one is where they talk about it the most. But they talk about how Elder Scrolls games are kind of this marriage of sandbox RPGs and more like constructed linear RPGs that lead you on a golden path. And I feel like as time goes on, the Elder Scrolls games have sort of veered farther away from the sandboxiness and closer to the golden path. Like Skyrim feels like the sort of peak of that, where it's like you're the Dovahkiin, and like here, and to the extent that people have modded it so you start without powers in a random part of the map, and like people have like modded it to become more like Daggerfall or whatever. Yeah, I feel like there is something really interesting. Obviously, like it gives it Skyrim is a huge fucking game. It's come out 1 billion times on 1 billion platforms, and billions of people have purchased it. Like there is something appealing about having the well-produced story with the dragon voiced by the guy who voices Mario. It's all very nice, but I think that I don't know. There's something fun about having a big adventure to go on, but it being encased in this world that allows you to just go wander off and find things that are emergent and interesting and totally unrelated to the main thing, and don't feel like they're just sort of prescribed World of Warcraft side quests where it's like, you see the guy and you're like, okay, I know I could do this for more XP, but things where they feel like they're sort of just like little tangential avenues to go down that feel like self-directed and sandboxy and weird.
Yeah, it's got a lot going for it. Even though there's no character creator in this, you know what I mean? You have your person, and in many ways it doesn't do a lot of the things that those RPGs do, but it seems richer for it. This one, at least. Do you guys have any questions about it mechanically, or anything about the?
Is there any like sorcery or mage stuff in it, or is it pretty grounded? What's like what is this game's reality?
That's a good question. There's no. I'm in a quest at the moment where. It seems entirely grounded in reality, where like I'm doing a quest that's about sort of some fella who's clearly he did a deal with the devil, and there's some weird devilly shit going on in that wood, and I'm very interested to learn what it actually is. But everyone thinks that this happened. There's a lot of that. Like there's a quest in one of the towns about a midwife who years earlier somebody lost a child, and they banished her really because she, like, you can tell it's because of what happened, and some people died and XYZ, but the sort of moral justification that the mob who drove her out is that she never baptized the child before it died, so it's not even buried in the local cemetery, right? So like there's a lot of like the mysticism in this has a lot to do with sort of faith and religion, and there's a real fear of outsiders in this game, which seems very legit too. Like if you were in these, especially when there's like a kind of a war going on, and it hasn't reached this part of the world really, but people are very like suspicious of outsiders when they come through. And there are other outsiders who are in the town too, who you can like chat to and stuff. And the longer I'm there, the more they seem to be trusting, but they heard about something I did at the start, which was like part of the main quest in there. So there's some interesting stuff with that, but yeah, there's no spell making or anything like that.
Is there any like fable, like you probably haven't reached this if it does exist in the game, but is there like buying a house or like romancing an NPC or like settling down in any way?
That's a good question. I don't know if there is any of that. There would be, I suspect there is buying, if not buying houses, then definitely buying places to stay. I think that's probably, but I'm not sure. You can stay in places, obviously like inns and things like that, and it costs you money. You can go to like little bathhouses and pay extra for the ladies to bathe you down. And then you end up with a perk. Like you have like a 24-hour perk for like having some sweet time with a person. So that was I came out of the bathhouse and they were like, they don't show anything. I was like interested in like how Eastern European is this game, right?
Yeah.
Like, in Cyberpunk, when you go down to the red light district or whatever, like there's like this little cutscene of like fade to black, like, and then it's like a dance, and then and then it's like little mini sex scene kind of thing happens, which are really well animated. I was always fascinated by like that seems really difficult to do, rigid bodies on rigid bodies, but in this one now you just kind of come, well, maybe you do, but you just come back and the lady's like, it feels a lot, it's like a wench holding like a jug full of water, and she's like, see you next time or whatever. You know what I mean? But then I had like this little like perk, and it had like a heart with two hands or something on it. So who knows, maybe if you've got I don't know if you can get a partner or anything in this game. But yeah, I don't know yet. You're right. It's a little bit early for that. Finding a bed was hard. That was the fucking main thing.
Oh, really?
Breaking into people's houses and sleeping on their fucking hay bales. There might be something you can do, like buy a little tent or something, and then you can put it wherever you want. I have no idea. But
it's like the Fallout murder hobo experience, but you can't be without the murder part. Like this is
what's
just
the murder hobo.
Like people when they play like Bethesda, like Fallout games or Elder Scrolls games, you just go around, you kill everything and steal everything, and you just kind of like wander around, murdering people and stealing and being an itinerant serial killer.
Whereas if you do it here,
they'll lock you up.
And in fact, to the point where the last time I was in the stockades, I think it might have been the second time, because there's a part that happens in the main quest as well. And then the game was like, just so you know, if you keep being like, they're not going to keep putting you in the fucking stockades. Like eventually they're just going to put you in jail. And then like, if you rise to the occasion high enough, they will execute you. So like, it's sort of, real justice that way.
Is the without obviously being more spoilery than sort of the setup here, is the what is sort of like the core quest, like the core story of this, other than you're like a disgraced noble?
It literally, the game starts with a sort of what was it called was it White Orchard? What was the Witcher 3 level? Remember where they gave you like a little mini area kind of at the start? I guess it doesn't really start that way. It starts with a very linear opening, which is teaching you a lot of the mechanics, and you're basically delivering a letter. That's it. And then something happens where you cannot fulfill that quest, and the person you're supposed to deliver the letter to is like, you're not letter deliverers, you're covered in shit, what are you talking about, go away. And you're basically trying to I'm doing all of these quests just trying to get like 2 seconds with this lord, like that's it. So it's a very funny setup, and obviously it's just the start of what apparently is a very, very large RPG. And I probably paid like, I don't know how much I paid, at least 10, 15 hours, maybe 15 hours. I could probably look on Steam actually if I just open it up here. 13 and a half hours. So, so and the open world that I'm in, I've maybe explored half of it at this stage. Like there's so much, and then I've unveiled half of it, but I have not explored half of it. Like there's so much stuff going on in the woods, and like people have talked about like old ladies who live in the woods that like will make you potions and stuff, and like I haven't seen any of that yet. And there's a hermit who's like speaks Spanish, so I'm like, oh, is he fleeing something over there? Or there's all these like little interesting stories going on. But yeah, it seems pretty big in that respect. But yeah, the main quest stuff is, I'm sort of off on my own at the moment. I suspect it'll loop back to that once I've reached the requirements. But there's a couple of different ways you can go about getting to meet this guy, and I suspect it's way more sandboxy. Like there's a lot of stuff that where like you need a special type of equipment to get something, and my understanding of how this game works is that like the game will tell you, oh, if you go over here and talk to this person, you can probably get the equipment. But I bet if you just broke into someone else's house, or if you knew somebody else who would sell it to you, or if you had like, you haggle a lot in this game. And there are certain sellers that I have who I've haggled with a lot, and we have good rapport, because every time you do a haggle and you kind of meet somewhere, they trust you more, so they'll start giving you stuff for less. So like there's certain people I buy things from as well, because it kind of works better. So I suspect you end up having your own solutions to some of these problems eventually. But yeah, I still haven't figured out a solution to the problem of every few hours my shoes fucking fall apart and I have to like find new shoes from somebody, steal shoes from somebody, or
dude, everything you describe is it's all like anti-power fantasy. That's so interesting, especially like having access to nobles, like even just to deliver a letter, because like in a lot of RPGs you could just walk up to the king and it's like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, like the king doesn't just like take randos walking around like running behind his throne and spamming jump.
Totally. I can't even get into the village where the guy is, It's so cool. It's like, and the fact that, if you're, people will treat you certain ways, or like even the fact that I had my dog with me at some stage, and it seemed like there was some people who just didn't like dogs, who were just like shitty to me because I had a dog.
Again, a homeless man experience. This is
right?
like fucking...
Exactly.
I've literally known crust punks with dogs who've gone through this exact thing.
And then you can you meet somebody on the side of the river and they're cooking some food, and you sit down with them and play some dice, and they're like, do you want some food? And you have some food, and then you go on your merry way. I found one guy, I was wandering through the woods. I was trying to avoid some guards who I thought were robbing a guy. I was spooked by that first time. So I heard somebody up in front, and I looked up ahead of the path, and I was like, oh, I don't really want to do this. So I wandered through the woods, which is a little bit scary because you're worried about running into wolves and stuff like that. But as I was doing it, I was like, I heard somebody making some noise, and I just came upon like a poacher. Like you could tell, like he was surrounded by stolen shit. And he was like on his own, and I was like, I'm gonna just go up and try and fucking kill this guy. And I went up, and I didn't have a dagger, so I couldn't stab him in the back or anything, but I walked up behind him and smashed him with my sword, and he reacted, and then we had a very short fight because he'd gotten so injured. That's who I got all my equipment from. Sorry, that's the guy. That's who I got all my equipment from, because I killed him so fast and his stuff wasn't that badly. So I just ransacked his fucking place, stole all his sausages, stole all his bread, stole a bunch of other stuff, and there was no one around. So I completely got away with it. Whereas if you do that and someone else is there, or somebody saw you earlier or close to it, you run the risk of getting embroiled in something later on. And it feels like a genuine risk. And like, I fucked up that quest forever. Like, they were telling me what they did. Like, I had to they were like, oh, so we found the caravan after you fucking disappeared, and then this happened, and then this happened, and that guy was this, and then I had to go back to my boss, the blacksmith, and tell him the story, and he was like, and you helped them, right? And I had to lie to him and say, yeah, sure, I was there the whole time.
They played the game without you. They you left
totally.
the console running for a day, and they're like, man, we did the mission. I don't know where you were.
It felt like a bummer. It felt like, because somebody died, and like this other guy is now an indentured servant. Like, it sounded like all this crazy stuff happened, and I probably could have gotten a bunch of free loot from it as well, or played somebody off against somebody else. But 100%, I like the slap on the wrist that I got for that being in the stockade was that I missed an entire quest, and it turns out that's like a really good disincentive. Like, I didn't feel like, oh, I got to skip that quest. It was like, oh, that all sounded interesting. Shit.
Yeah, and it's not just resetting to like an hour prior or whatever,
exactly.
Making you rerun it. Yeah, that's kind of like the Disco Elysium thing, where like, because failure is so interesting in a way that isn't just like, you failed, like, please load the game.
Yes.
When you make failure states interesting in ways that are like, can still be punishing. Like, it feels bad to miss the story, but it feels interesting to hear NPCs tell you about their experience with it. Then players are incentivized to just like commit to their mistakes in a way that makes them play more intentionally.
The save game stuff helps as well because there is a limit on you save every time you fall asleep. The game will save after like important quest moments as well. Like if you complete a thing, it'll say game saved really quickly just to let you know right in the middle of the screen. But the only other way you can save is by drinking a potion. It's like a special potion that you can brew yourself. If I'm looking for fucking dandelions and heather and shit all over the place, right? Because you can go in your little area and make your potion. You can sell your potion. If you don't have no money for anything, you can just make a bunch of potions and sell some. Spend a day making potions. I did it. And then sell a bunch of potions to somebody and then keep going. But there is a special one that is basically allows you to save the game. So it makes you not save scum. Basically, it makes you make sure that you sort of... either makes you do a quest or do something big right after you've had a sleep and you're rested and you're ready to go. Or if you really need to save, you can use that thing to save. But there's a couple of times I've lost some progress because of it, and it just makes you like I like it. I think some people have used them like a mods to allow more saving, but it makes me stop before I interact in that situation. Like the guy getting robbed on the side of the street, and also just lots of the social situations. Like sometimes there's been times on quests, like at the end of a really long side quest where it's now this very heated situation and somebody might die or somebody might get away, and it's all coming down to like if you do the wrong speech checks, they're just gonna that's it. You're not gonna do it, and knowing that I can't really just reload this, which is, what I do with Cookie Clicker every fucking time. I have 7 quadrillion cookies and I need to spend them. I need to min-max it. I'll reload that save over and over again and redo my cookies. Whereas, in this, it's like you kind of know you're going to have to live with it. And I like that tension.
Yeah, no, that I think that's a great way of creating stakes. I think I interviewed a developer recently who was talking about a major design decision in a game they were working on and wanting to have permadeath with it. And basically, like, the publisher and everyone else on the team was like, every player is going to hate this because, you pour hours and hours and hours into a character and it dies and no one's going to like that. And when I was interviewing him, I was like, I feel like time has kind of vindicated your design decision because now hardcore World of Warcraft is like, it's one of the most like popular things. It started out as this niche thing where, I played a ton of Diablo 2 as a kid, and I've never played a hardcore Diablo character in my life because the idea was too scary. But it's always got this like allure to it because everything you do is so intentional. And similarly, like even if it's, it's been an hour since I saved and I don't have time to drink a save potion or whatever, that creates real like stakes and intentionality around your decision making in a way that if you can save, it trivializes it so much that it's like, I'll try this and see what happens and then redo it and then try it this way.
In the small moments too, like sometimes in the big ones, you're like, okay, that's, worst case scenario, maybe I really, 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 really do want to have a do-over on this, and I'll just like, I'll Alt F4 or I'll do something else. You know what I mean? I should say one thing that the game does allow you to do is if you're exiting the game, it'll save there. But it won't be a quick save. You know what I mean? Like you can come back in. So it's not like you always have to load, if I'm in the middle of a fucking field, I can quit and save and it'll quit and save. But when I load back in, it's not like that's now a save point that I can use, which I also think is really cool. But even in like, sometimes you'll be having like a trivial conversation and I'll fuck it up. And then I hadn't had a save for like a while. And I'm like, well, fuck. I guess I shouldn't have been angry to that sheep herder, and now he's not going to tell me that thing. I'm like, I'm going to try and break into his house and get it now, I guess. Wait till he's asleep. That's what you do. You wait till someone's asleep. You crawl in. You don't let the night watchman see you. You lockpick a door. You try and keep quiet, like all that sort of stuff. Nobody can see you. It's really cool.
That's a really good point, actually, is if you make a game that has that kind of high stakes, like lack of saving, where it pushes players into committing to their decisions, I think it is a good design decision to then give them sort of like other, perhaps less ideal avenues to solve those problems.
Totally.
Because then it doesn't feel like, oh, you said the wrong thing or got the wrong like dice roll or whatever, and you fucked this up and now every door and window is closed in your face. It's just like, oh shit, I could have gone in the front door, but now I have to like crawl through the sewer.
Yeah, totally. And it feels like this game does that a lot, where it punishes you, but then it keeps going.
Yeah, that's smart.
It doesn't feel like you hit a cul-de-sac and you gotta hit reload. Kingdom Come Deliverance II. This is gonna be taking a lot up my 2025. I'm absolutely besotted with this game. I kind of needed a game like this. I was fishing around for something like that I could really throw myself into, and nothing was really coming up. So I'm super happy with it. It's really terrific. Let's move on to House of Necrosis. This demo is the game is available to wishlist on Steam. But there is a demo for it up on itch.io. Is that correct, Jeremy?
That is correct, yeah. So this is a game by a developer named Warkus, who I've been following House of Necrosis for a while. This is a mystery dungeon, Resident Evil mystery dungeon is the easiest way of describing this. It's basically exactly what you're imagining when you hear those words. Mystery dungeons.
To the point where the screenshot here looks like the Resident Evil 1 mansion.
Yes.
And you look like, is that Jill? It looks like Jill Valentine, but that would be Resi 2.
It does look a lot like Jill Valentine.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so this is definitely wearing its inspiration on its sleeves in a lot of ways. The menus and the sound effects also remind me alternatingly between like Final Fantasy with the menus, and the sounds remind me a lot of Resident Evil and Silent Hill. It's oozing with very authentic PlayStation energy. But this is have either of you guys played many mystery dungeon games? This is a genre.
No, what's a mystery dungeon?
Okay,
game?
so if you're listening to this and you're a mystery dungeon aficionado, apologies in advance. This is a genre that I am aware of, but this is literally the first mystery dungeon game I've ever played. This is a genre that emerges out of sort of classic roguelikes, like Rogue and like NetHack, like roguelikes. And it basically is from what I understand, largely is sort of like procedurally generated dungeons that you move through, usually like tile based, and I believe in most, if not all of them, when you move, the enemies move, like classic roguelikes. So, the enemies over here, you're over here, you move one tile, they move one tile, you move one tile, they move one tile, like chess almost.
Right.
And so this is basically there's like a famous there's a Pokemon mystery dungeon. There's like they've done a bunch of different themed ones. But this is just straight up a Resident Evil one. It does a few interesting twists beyond that, and some of these may be conventions that other mystery dungeon games do. I'm not 100% sure. So if it sounds like I'm saying like, well, they invented this, I'm just saying this game does it well, and I don't fucking know if it's original or not. I think it's good either way. But basically,
you don't have a PhD in mystery dungeons.
No, I'm just dipping my toes into the mystery dungeon. So basically you start out and there are these sort of procedurally generated floors of connected rooms with hallways. And as you move through them, there's like loot on the ground, there are chests, there's traps, there's monsters that follow you once you get into sort of their aggro range. And basically what happens is you're kind of, like a roguelike, you're building a build. You find like a gun, you find a knife, maybe you find another gun, and the second gun you find is like has green text, and you're like, oh shit, it's like Diablo, like there's like unidentified items and stuff. So you're building this build, you're building up your inventory, and you're doing this sort of turn-based combat where you walk up to an enemy, you hit space, you swing your sword, they attack, you attack, they attack, and it's kind of managing your position, managing your health, using the items, making sure you have like an advantageous position, sort of like maybe like kiting enemies into a hallway so you can take them on one at a time, stuff like that. But
you're able to, you're not like clicking move left, like you sort of have, you can like hold left to keep running left, and then all of them will run at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of. It's like, it's not turn based, but they also don't move unless you're moving. Is that right?
It's like pseudo turn based. Yeah. It's not like, there's no like move phase. It's not like Final Fantasy Tactics or something. It's more like everything you move and they move basically like instantly at the exact same time. Or when there's attacks, like if you attack, then they attack, then like the third guy attacks. And by the time everyone else has attacked, it's queued up for you to attack again.
Right.
But yeah, if you like run down a hallway, there you can hold shift to run as well, just like if you want to go back and backtrack and not be slow. But if you start sprinting through the dungeon, everything else moves at the exact same rate.
Funny, okay.
So it's like, you know, you can't really like run away very effectively.
But you can sort of stop and plan.
Yes.
That's kind of the thing.
You can stop as long as you want and plan. Like they won't move until you move. So yeah, there is sort of like a tactics RPG / chess feel to it that's really interesting. But anyway, so you do a run, and every floor has this kind of procedurally generated setup. There's a door on every floor that goes down to the next floor, and you're proceeding through this kind of like, you know, procedurally generated Spencer mansion of procedurally generated rooms. But what's interesting about it, and this is the part that I don't know if many mystery dungeons do this or if this is an innovation or whatever, is that it has an extraction element to it. So basically, if you die, you drop everything you picked up, and you wake up, you respawn in this like room with this like little weird guy who's like a vendor basically and can identify your items. So
what are you buying?
Yeah, exactly, one of those guys. And one of the items that he has is an extraction crystal. I can't remember exactly what it's called. And what that allows you to do is it takes 3 turns to cast, but if you can get to a position where you are 3 turns of safety, you can extract from the dungeon with all of your loot. And these cost money too, so it's not totally stakesless. But basically, at that point, it's kind of like Tarkov or something, where you've taken all of your loot out of the dungeon. You can identify your items and store them and sell and buy stuff and sort of like, you know, build a loadout and then go do another run. But if you die, you lose all the stuff you brought in with you. So it's this very like high stakes, you know, like, is this the run? Do I want to bring my like charge pistol +3 or whatever? Or is this a bullshit run and I'll just bring like a bunch of, you know, shitty knives and my escape crystals and go to a run?
Nice one.
Yeah, it's really cool. I played a lot of the demo last night. There's no anticipated release date, but I will be playing the fuck out of this when it comes out.
How long is the demo? Or is it sort of infinitely replayable because of the nature of it a little bit?
I did not reach the end of it's quite difficult. That might be because of my naivete in this genre. There's a screenshot on the Steam page that goes down to floor 10.
Okay.
I did not quite make it to floor 10, so I don't know how deep it actually goes, but I do know that the full game is going to have a bunch of additional areas. So, yeah, I mean, I played like over an hour just of this demo, and I felt like I barely scratched the surface. So I think this will be a pretty sizable game when it comes out.
House of Necrosis. There'll be a link to the itch demo in the description. Thanks, Jesse. Appreciate it. You can go play that out, and you can wishlist it on Steam as well. House of Necrosis. Love to hear it. Love to see it. It's got a House of the Dead kind of naming convention as well.
Very true. Yeah, House of Necrosis makes me think of like brown recluse spiders or something. Like I feel like I'm gonna get bitten by like spiders when I hear that title.
Don't like it. Games with great titles as well. Street Fighter. I mean, that's a pretty good title, Frank. But I think WCW versus nWo World Tour is... I feel like if you did not know that was a wrestling game, that's a pretty fucking weird title. Frank, you've been dipping into the world of fighting games, both sports entertainment and real? I don't know what we call Street Fighter. What's the deal with it? Is there new DLC for Street Fighter 6?
So Street Fighter 6, let me see when it originally came out, because this is now like we're on the year 2 season pass, which I got. So let's see. Street Fighter 6 came out 2023, so not that long ago.
Summertime, 23, yeah.
Yeah, and I played it when it came out and I liked it, but like it's so fun. I mean, it happened with like Street Fighter 5 and even Street Fighter 4. It's like the base game comes out, the base roster, and it's like not all of my favorite characters are in there, but I played Guile a lot and I liked it. And then I hit the wall with like ranked matches where I started getting angry, and I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm done playing this. So I forgot about it. And now cut to like present day. I was very excited. Like just like a few months ago, they announced like their year 2 season pass, and they had Terry and Mai from SNK, like Fatal Fury.
Yeah.
So Mai is now in the game, who is a, you know, very character design's very awesome. If you know Mai from SNK, and I was like, all right, I gotta play this game. And so yeah, I bought like the year 1 season pass was on sale, so I got all those characters year 2. and I was ready to dive in and play, and then PlayStation Network was down for the weekend.
Yes. Was it all weekend in the end?
It was down for like 2 days, but for a gamer, that's
That
like,
was
you know,
crazy.
That's a lifetime.
I know.
Yeah.
We have a machine upstairs that like where my wife will play games on that, but the games are tied to my account, right? But she's able to like play, and she wanted to play whatever Jurassic World, whatever the Jurassic Park strategy game is called again. And yeah, we were like, you couldn't do it because you couldn't validate the license. And I'm like, what? Why don't I buy games physically anymore? How did this happen? And then it was all night, and it was Saturday as well. That's absolutely that's the biggest outage they've ever had, I think.
Yeah, since like 2013 or whatever the original
the famous one.
It was down for like Portal 2 had just come out, touting like, yeah, you can finally play this Valve game on your PS3 online, and then it was out for a month. And so as condolences, PlayStation gave everyone a free copy of like Infamous and Little Big Planet. Anyway.
Cheers, lads.
So to make up for this, everyone got 5 days extra added onto their billing cycle. But it was very funny to see like tweets and replies to PlayStation that was like, we should all get Lego Horizons for free. We need, you know, like,
that's funny.
or whatever. And it's like,
take advantage of it. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Anyways, server's finally back online, and I've had a lot of fun playing and even just diving into the world of Street Fighter. Like, they've never stopped adding new content to the game. So there's so many more characters in this game. They keep doing like goofy anime collaborations. So if you go into like Street Fighter 6 online avatar worlds, they had like Spy Family DLC.
Really?
So people are dressed up as like Spy Family. And
what? So explain. Is this like clothes for the characters? Or?
Yeah. So it's like for your avatar, like in Street Fighter 6.
Oh yeah.
So it's like there's the actual characters you fight with, which are like, you know, that's the main characters. But like when you're in the online lobbies, everyone is just dressed up, and people will cosplay as other different.
It's like a it's like an open hub that you sort of like run around in, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and you can like sit down at arcade cabinets and wait for people to fight you and things like that. And so, but I was doing that because I basically made like a trophy guide for myself and just get all these trophies. Either way, the game now compared to when it came out back in 2023. There's now like 7 new characters. They're still adding one more. And so playing online ranked matches, it's like I don't know any of the characters because it's all so many. Half the roster's like all brand new. But it's been very, very fun, and I'm proud that when I was playing as the character Mai, I got a higher rank than what my Guile character was, which is my main.
Nice.
So I was like, oh my god, it's so fun to use Mai, and I don't know if that's because like people don't know how to fight against her because she's a new character. People have to learn new mechanics, but it's very, very fun to play as. I've yet to really dabble with Terry or all the like 6 other new characters added to it, but it's always kind of fun.
Bison got added during the summer, and Elena's up next, it looks like. Yeah, in spring.
Yep.
She's 3, right?
Yeah, from Third Strike, and then even year 1 they added like Akuma and some other characters. So it's like, it's almost like getting Street Fighter 6.5. So it's really fun playing a game at launch and then like forgetting about it and then reinstalling it, be like, oh my god, there's a whole new game here. If you've been like tapped out of Street Fighter, now is kind of the time to check it out. I don't know if it'll still be on sale when this is up, but it's like half off. All the DLC is discounted, so it's like, now it's like, you know, essentially like their gold edition or game of the year edition. So that's been very, very fun and surprising. And then the other game I've been playing is WCW versus nWo World Tour, which like man, okay, this is the very first retro achievements is the reason I've gone back to this. But WCW versus nWo World Tour came out in 1997. This was like the first wrestling game I ever played as a kid. This was the first exposure to wrestling I ever had in my life. Oh, really? This was literally like just a blind rental from Blockbuster. And I can vividly remember this. I think I was 6 years old, like playing it for maybe like 30 minutes, and then immediately
you
being
saw
like,
Big Show and Hollywood Hogan on the front cover, and you were like, I need this in my life.
Yeah, I was like, this looks cool. And so I played it for like 30 minutes, and I vividly remember just being like, can we keep this game? Like, I think back then you could like go back to Blockbuster and just pay the difference or whatever. But I was obsessed with the game as a kid, but I had zero context for wrestling, any of the characters or anything, but I still loved the game. And then eventually like got all wrestling games and eventually started watching wrestling and all that. But now it's almost like the hero's journey. It's like the circle is complete. I've now like traveled the world to see wrestling. I've read so many books. I've watched so much wrestling. My friends and I have started like as an experiment or whatever. we've started watching WCW Monday Nitro. Like right now we're in like May 1997. And so,
wow.
like this is my prestige TV. This is like, I am so enthralled in so like, I never watched WCW. Like by the time I was even watching wrestling, like WCW had folded, sucked into the WWE and all that stuff. So it's like watching this like very cheesy like telecast from the 90s is like the greatest television I've ever seen. So now it's like, I know every character in this game. I know everyone's backstory. Like the time I'm watching the TV show is like when the game was being developed. So it's so relevant to like what I'm watching. Even in the game and in the TV show, there was a wrestler named Glacier who...
Glacier?
Dude, if you haven't seen Glacier, type in WCW Glacier.
It's just a white guy who moves super slowly?
Well, so... At the time in 1997, the coolest game in the world, it wasn't Street Fighter, it was Mortal Kombat.
My God,
Holy shit.
it's a fucking Sub-Zero guy.
Yes,
Holy shit.
literally.
Oh
So like,
my God.
like one of the biggest movies of the 90s was Mortal Kombat. It made like $100 million. So the TV executives were like, you know what? We need the kids like Mortal Kombat. Let's get Sub-Zero, but we're gonna call him Glacier. And every time
my God.
Glacier came out into the ring, they would blow $10,000. They would like have like fake snow come down and lighting stuff. And
That's
all,
amazing.
And, like,
Dude,
but
All Elite Wrestling's
yeah.
YouTube channel has an interview with
Yeah.
him from 2 days ago.
Yes.
What?
So the timing of this is insane. So now Glacier works backstage as a producer and trainer at AEW. So it's all
gosh.
connected. So you can unlock Glacier in WCW NWO World Tour. And the only way the only way I knew about that is like the retro achievements has all the things like unlock this character, do this. As a kid, I don't think I unlocked a single character. I don't think I ever played like the campaign mode. I think I just did exhibition matches with like no rules so I could use chairs. Either way, so it's funny to finally go back to this game like 28 years later and be like, no, I'm going to get every achievement. I'm going to actually learn the game. But I'm like so like enthralled because I know all the characters. Also, like even playing the game, there's no UI. It's so scaled down. Like you have like your spirit bar, but that's it. Whereas like wrestling games later have so much crap on the screen and it's like, oh, this is like so minimalist. It's like very basic 3D graphics. Like one of the very first like 3D wrestling games.
It was also like when it first came out, it was not the most popular or well received wrestling game. It was different. It was doing things different to the other WWF stuff. But it wasn't as if this came out and was like the hotness or anything.
No.
When it came in
It was a
1997.
B game for sure.
It took some time, and then it wasn't until like WWF No Mercy. It's the same development team. So it was Aki Games was the studio that was like making, and it was a Japanese team. So like they call it World Tour because it's WCW versus NWO. The second half of the roster are all Japanese wrestlers because I
Right.
think Aki Games made like virtual pro wrestling. Like they made a Japanese wrestling game for the Japanese market. But they're like, okay, we already have this game. Let's just add WCW characters to it. And so the second half, it's all Japanese wrestlers. But now that I've been studying Japanese wrestling, I'm like, oh my God, that's a great Sasuke. That's like, I know all these characters.
Oh, that's
you
awesome.
can even unlock a Joshi wrestler, Manami Toyota. So now I'm like, and they call her Black Widow in this. But so now I'm like, oh my God, I'm just scraping this game, diving deep. And then I want to get next is WCW NWO Revenge. But then, yeah, the game that everyone knows is WWF No Mercy.
No Mercy. That was
That's-
them as well,
yep.
right?
Yeah, and that was like not even counting the Japanese games, but like that was like the third one of these they had made. So they had really tightened up and added it. And then at that point, WWF had overtaken WCW, and then they iterated again with like WrestleMania 2000, and then then we got the SmackDown games like the Next Generation. But yeah, it's
And they
kind of-
worked on a bunch of Def Jam stuff as
Yes,
well. We were chatting
same-
about this during the week.
Yeah, same studio. So it's kind of fun just going back to be like, oh my God, this is where like for me, like my wrestling fandom begins, my like video game fandom begins. And it's just been really fun to like, I don't know, like just to see the cheesy polygons of like dudes wearing NWO shirts and like black sunglasses and like nothing has ever looked cooler than this. So
The only thing that could look slightly cooler is somebody kind of looking like Sub-Zero in that game.
yeah.
There you go. Glacier.
As a kid, I have never watched a wrestling match in my entire life, but I played probably like 200 hours of this game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this was a staple in my house. Whenever friends were over, we were playing this game. And it was funny because I had a bunch of friends as a kid who were really into wrestling. And it never, for whatever, like I'm not one of those people who's like, what is it? It's like fake or whatever. I just like it never caught my attention. But but I had like, this was my portal into that world. So all of a sudden people were like talking about wrestlers and I was like, yeah, I know that guy, but I know him as like a video game character. This game was so much fun. This was like one of the best, like, again, a B game for sure, like a little janky, but such a good like party game to throw on with friends at the time. And it was just it was bombastic and weird, and like the animations were like so janky and evocative, but in like the most fun way. Also, I didn't realize that their WCW versus the World was they did that one first. I've never even seen this game. Frank, have you played this?
No, I think I found out. I don't know if like Jeff Gerstmann mentioned or like there was a review like quote on the Wikipedia. But like, yeah, this is the very first one, and like this one almost looks like 2.5D. It is 3D, but it looks the graphics almost look like, I don't want to say like isometrics, but it's like it's so the camera's further back. But I'm like, oh, I kind of want to check this out now because I completely missed this, but.
What's the name of that really popular isometric wrestling?
Fire Pro
Fire
Wrestling.
Pro. Yeah,
that one's isometric. That one is legit. But yeah, like the world of, I mean, whatever, just wrestling games in general. There's so many, but it's always fun because it's like you can tell when the game was made by everyone's gimmick and costumes and stuff. Like, but yeah, I think I need to play WCW versus the World. And just
such a good
see how it
title.
goes.
The cover art for it is really good too. It looks like a, I don't know, like a poster you would see at like a tattoo shop or something.
Amazing. Beautiful. WCW versus nWo World Tour coming at you straight out of 1997. It's almost 30 years ago, gentlemen. Oh my God.
Don't say that, please.
What a terrific trip down memory lane. Thank you very much, Frank. It looks like we have an email as well.
Yeah, we had a question come in on our Discord, and if you do want to send us an email, write to us at podcast@noclip.video or in our Patreon Discord in the podcast chat channel. End of Media wrote us a question. Gaming blind spots. What are some important games that you feel like you should have played, but for some reason never got around to? I've never played any of the Half-Life games, minus Black Mesa, or Metal Gear games, minus Revengeance.
Wow. Get on that. First of all, what's the first Metal Gear he should play? They should play.
I would just say I think Metal Gear's solid. Like it's
agree.
also lean. It's like you can beat it 5 to 10 hours. Like it's not that long of a game.
I think if you don't play that, the rest of them will make absolutely no sense. Like
I've only played 2 and 3, so I can. Those are the only Metal. I've never played 1, 4, or 5. I feel like it kind of made sense. I feel like I would have a lot more context for it if I need to play Metal Gear Solid 1.
God, 5 is such a weird, different game as well. I fucking adore 4. 4 is just absolutely outrageous. I love the enemies in it, like all those weird screaming, like made of black gelatin, like rage and all that. Those ones, the monkey with the Coke can, riding in that is dope. There's so much going on. Metal Gear Solid 4, it's pretty good. Play Half-Life 2 though. Come on.
Yeah, Half-Life.
I guess you did. You played Black Mesa.
That's true, but I do.
Sorry,
feel,
that's Half-Life 1. Sorry.
But I feel like you should play Half-Life 1 even if you've played Black Mesa. I feel like there is something, I don't know, like the janky version of Zen is worth experiencing, the original version, and
it's a lot shorter.
Yeah, there's also just like Black Mesa is so polished that I can understand why people are like, oh, if you're going to play Half-Life now, you should play Black Mesa.
Yeah.
But I do think there's something to, in the same way that Frank was saying, like watching these wrestling matches from 97 has like a new sort of significance watching them now as historical relics. I think playing Half-Life, the original version now, and like, it's like a time portal because it feels so contemporary and advanced. But I don't know. I think it holds up in ways that are more interesting now.
Big time.
What are other blind spots you guys have?
Oh, my list of shame. Metroid games, barely touched any of them. I think I played a bit of Metroid Prime at a friend's house, but basically never played them. Very similarly, Castlevania games, never played any of them. Never touched, never. I don't think I've ever booted up any of them at all. But both Nintendo, Metroidvanias, it's right there. I just didn't touch them. Final Fantasy series, I've tried numerous times. I think I played more of 14 than any of them because of research for that documentary. I played maybe 7 hours of Final Fantasy VII, the new one, whatever it was called. Not the first of the new ones. Was it Rebirth or whatever it was called?
I can't
What was it
remember
called?
which.
They all have weird subtitles.
I think it's
I think it might just be like Final Fantasy VII Remake. but
Remake.
the
Oh, yeah.
interlude, I think, is like the PS5 version. But yeah.
Okay, yeah, whatever that one was. Fortnite.
Yeah, I've never played Fortnite
barely
either.
fucking touch. I think I've played maybe a game of Fortnite. I was so into PUBG, and I felt a lot of emotions about Fortnite because not only did it like obviously lift that genre out of PUBG, which you could argue was the sort of original one because PlayerUnknown had done that on DayZ and everything. But also they killed the Unreal Tournament project to do it. So I felt very like, I didn't feel like angry at them, but I was like, it just had enough bad juju around it where I was like, I don't need to play this baby version of PUBG. I can. And then by the time I tried it, because I did try it, I definitely played a game or maybe two. I was like, oh fuck, I'm so behind the curve on this construction stuff that I just can't. So maybe I should jump in and play without that and that other mode. I don't know. There's something about it. It just represents something that I'm not. I don't know. Does it make me feel old, or is there something about its mass market appeal that makes me feel a little bit dirty? I don't know what it is. Like, I have nothing against the game at all, but it just, I don't, when you have like, there's something that like appeals to you, but like, I want to play Metal Gear Solid because Metal Gear Solid's a cool game and I'll feel cool playing this cool game. I feel whatever that is, I feel the opposite about Fortnite.
Yeah, I feel the same
don't know
way.
why.
I feel like Fortnite is very polished mechanically, and clearly, they've designed the shit out of it to feel good and play well. It just feels like, like playing an advertisement, playing a Super Bowl advertisement as a video game or something. Like it's not even that I like want to feel cool playing a game. It's that like games are not just these interactive experiences in a mechanical sense, but they're also sort of like there's a more holistic like Marshall McLuhan thing going on where like the game and what it represents is part of the psychological experience of playing the game. And when a game is so unscrupulously involved in consuming IP and like taking every like finding every like dance move and character and like art style.
Frank's
and
nodding like, yeah, baby.
It's like the old political cartoons where it would be like the octopus that would have its tentacles all over New York City or whatever. I feel like Fortnite is like that. Like it feels insidious to me in a way that that is so normalized we don't really think about it that way because it's like, oh, that's just good business. And it's like, oof, I don't know, man.
There's this weird incentive that I've had for the past like 10 years or maybe longer, but definitely since I've been in the games press or media or whatever, in that I need to like make sure that I am playing that I know things, that I like have experience playing lots of different types of games. And that's why I've gotten into that's why I tried to get into Crusader Kings so many times. And that's why I got into like Dwarf Fortress and Final Fantasy for sure. Like that was another example of, I should do my time here. And for whatever reason, Fortnite also feels like one that I kind of like, I could put 10 hours into it and I bet I know exactly what it is already. Like I'm like, I think I get it. So I don't need to do this. And I feel that with some other stuff. Like League of Legends, I've never played either. Like I played Dota for a little bit when I was in beta or whatever, when it first came out or something. And I'm not a huge fan of MOBAs, and so I've never touched LOL, but I've seen LOL. The same way I've never played Valorant, but like I played Counter-Strike for my whole life. So I look at Valorant, and I played a lot of Overwatch. I look at Valorant to go, I know what that is. It's not for me, but I know what it is.
Yeah. I've played like all of those games, and it is funny how much, play League and you're like, yeah, this is just like a different version of Dota, or Valorant is very Counter-Strike. Like it doesn't, I don't know. It's why I have kind of mixed feelings, because I think Valorant is like a very well-made game, but it's I don't know. It feels like it's like a pretentious thing to fucking say that like if we're just like cannibalizing these same games forever, then games as a medium don't grow. Like whatever, yeah. Just it's fucking video games. It's like entertainment. I get it, but like
I feel what you're saying.
I think it's a valid point. I don't want people to be like, oh, well, this guy again. But like I think it's like sometimes I think there is a there's like a feeling or an experience you get from playing a new type of game or a game that tries something radically new that is, maybe you think about it the next day or week or whatever, and you're like, wow, that was a really cool novel experience that I had, and it fed my intellectual soul in a way, or like creatively it gives you something. Whereas I don't know, when I play Valorant, it's a very polished, well-made game, but I feel like I'm just having the same experience I've been having since I was fucking 8 years old or whatever, whenever I first played Counter-Strike.
And some games are either marketed or designed almost on what side of that argument they land on. Like a lot of indie games that we talk about every week are games that are intentionally being like, you've never played anything like this before. Like, look at this weird combination we've come up with. This like art style and this gameplay mechanic, or like it's a subversion of like, oh, it's a road trip game, but we're doing it, side scrolling, right? Like, or whatever it is. And then there are games that are, because they're mass market, are very much the opposite, where it's like, hey, game X that you like? Well, this is Y. Like, it's close to that. You know what I mean? Like, it's similar. Like, Valorant is a first-person shooter. Dota is a MOBA. Like, games that are trying to stay close to... They're trying to ape a previous version. And I think that stuff, depending on how old you are probably as well, and how many games you've played over the years, has diminishing returns for sure. Like, I'm like, oh, another version of that. Okay. Like, maybe I'll play it if I'm super into that genre. But, like, I'm probably just not going to because, if I wanted to, I'd play the other one, but I don't want to, so whatever.
This is pure speculation, but I, how Riot was working on a big MMO project, and there's kind of been not a lot of details about it, and they're kind of like kicking it down the road and stuff. I wonder, because a lot of Riot's games are, take a popular game and make our own version of it, like League of Legends and Valorant.
Yeah.
I feel like every MMO since World of Warcraft came out, for the most part, the vast majority have just been like World of Warcraft, but not as good and with a different theming, different art style, whatever. I wonder if it is a little more difficult to find, because an MMO is sort of like this. It's less of like a dense kind of like, you get the loop is like less dense or something. Like, you can make a Counter-Strike clone that plays like Counter-Strike and give it different abilities and different code of paint, and it feels like enough of a different game.
Right.
I don't think you could just like swap all WoW's art assets. There is like an element of it that is a little harder to capture or bottle or something. And I wonder if it had forced them into finding sort of more of their own identity for that MMO. And I think that is a very probably like difficult and longitudinal process for such a grand project.
It's hard, I think, because the reason WoW sort of had that big mass appeal, obviously the Blizzard has a really good, they're very good at like interface and play, like onboarding for players and quality and all these things that definitely a lot of MMOs didn't have. They were very sort of utilitarian and a bit janky and all that sort of stuff. But also what it did was sort of, WoW did not really break as much ground as it sort of just like, codified a lot of the best learnings of MMO and gave it the best, quality paint job ever. And then their post-launch was amazing, right? And all the expansion packs came so fast. Like Burning Crusade was like a really big thing that came in a couple of years later and all that. And I think sometimes when that happens, and it happened with FIFA as well in like soccer, and probably with Counter-Strike or Fortnite now with that, is that you end up making these Coca-Cola games where like they're so popular and they're so good that like any version that attempts to look any way like it, which you kind of have to because people like drinking Coca-Cola. You don't want to come with an entirely different flavor. It's very risky. Whereas if you're close to it, at least you'll siphon some people off, but like you're never going to knock the king off. How many times over the years can we say that like that's happened? Like Call of Duty knocked Medal of Honor off because it was the Medal of Honor people who made Call of Duty. You know what I mean? Like that's, and because, there's been very few times you've had one game come in and entirely usurp another popular game. It's usually a situation like, Valorant and Counter-Strike makes sense because CS hadn't been updated in forever by the time Valorant had come out. So you do run into that, like, it's that problem. It's the problem we're in a little bit at the moment, where games cost so much now and we've established so many rules, which means that so many of the AAA games are really uninteresting, and now consoles aren't getting fucking sold, and then, people are playing these social games more because they're into them. I don't think that's going to continue forever, but I do think that it is like, you do run into a problem with that. And like you said, WoW is a really good example of that, because every single MMO, almost, like Eve was different. Like there's different ones that try it, and he was interesting because of that. But like so many of them felt like pretenders to that crown. They were just, oh, it's Middle Earth. We'll just slap instead of Ironforge, it's Hobbiton.
Yeah, that's
Elven Forest.
That's the MMOs are a canary in the coal mine. I feel like for that larger problem with AAA games is that because MMOs are particular, even when games were cheaper to make, MMOs were like insanely expensive to make, right, and so now that like every game has become more expensive to make and maintain, right. MMOs, like if this is the graph for normal games budget going up, this is the graph for MMO budget going up.
They're meeting.
Yeah. Like MMO is outpacing it like exponentially or whatever. So now you have like crowdfunded MMOs that become vaporware after getting millions and millions of dollars because it's just so fucking expensive to make one. But yeah, so then like you have the thing where it's like, like indies is the space where people like innovate and do weird game design and stuff. But I feel like it's tough because indie games at the moment are sort of a lottery where, you see a lot of success stories that sort of are the prominent ones like Balatro and stuff, but they're not representative of the reality for a larger number of developers who, toil on these games and don't have sort of like support structures. I think that like it's a problem that games need to solve as a medium is how do we better support more experimental and weirder game makers in the name of having like a space in games that are like, that is expressly a place to experiment and try new things, because that clearly, like the space for that is clearly not like $200 million games that, 500 people's
which I think is
running on.
Yeah. I worry about the future of indie games because there's so many people doing them. And I think it's creating like a crowding out problem. But I think in terms of like discoverability and the games coming out of the indie space that are interesting, it's never been this good. Like, we've never had it this good. And I think we'll know how bad it can get when that starts to downturn, and then suddenly we don't have this. We'll think about the embarrassment of riches we had during this period. Hopefully we won't, but it makes me worry a little bit about that. We drifted a little bit off the question. Frank, was there any games that you are in your list of shame? Yeah,
there's two. One is I've still never really played Deus Ex. I played like the opening, New York Statue of Liberty level, like I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. And it was like, oh, I wasn't ready for it. And I've never gone back to it. But I also feel like maybe one day we'll have to play it for a documentary. I don't, like, that's not, I don't know. I'm just assuming. We've covered every other immersive sim.
I've tried to get Harvey to talk about it, but he doesn't remember shit all about my working on Deus Ex. Warren Spector probably remembers more. We should, maybe someday. And then have you played, what about all the other sims we've covered? You've played those for... Right, Dishonored or Prey, or
like like Prey was a game I played at launch and loved. Like Dishonored, I played because we did the documentary. Thief, I played because of the documentary.
System Shock.
Oh, System Shock! I got that remake, but I never played that. So yeah. And then the other game that I still just need to play one day is Mother 3. Like Earthbound's like one of my favorite games of all time. So I'm like the next one's just right there. It's like the one thing. It's like why I still haven't seen Kurosawa's Ran yet, where it's like. I don't want the journey to be over. I know it's there. Once I watch every Kurosawa film, I'm like, that's it? I don't know. Like, I've intentionally done that. I went down Kurosawa's filmography and I was like, whoa. Let me live a life. And then when I watch these, I'll have more context to reflect. Like, I don't know. There's something about where it's like saving a bottle of wine. It's like, no, one day. I know I can play Mother 3 one day. But I'm afraid. Yeah, and now with retro achievements, there's never been a better time. Or if Nintendo puts out,
I was like to watch Kurosawa movies.
No,
dude, they should do retro achievements. Didn't take eyes off the screen for 1 hour.
Exactly. Didn't pause it. Didn't check.
Notice the motion in the back of the frame.
Yeah. Oh my god. My god. Yeah.
Frank, have you seen? I've talked about it on the podcast before. I can't remember if you were on this episode. Have you ever seen Harakiri? The movie Harakiri.
That's the seppuku. Yeah.
You have seen that movie?
I'm trying to think. I think I watched the remake first, and then I watched the original, or I watched the original. Oh
yeah, there's a Takashi Miike version.
Takashi Miike's is really good because it's extremely bloody. Yeah, but I think I watched the original one also. But yeah, it's super good.
I only bring it up because it's written by the same screenwriter as Rashomon, and I watched Rashomon recently. Anyway, it's not Kurosawa, but it's I wanted to make sure you'd seen it because I love that movie.
Nice, good stuff. Watch all your Kurosawa movies before,
Let's save one.
Your watch list of shame, exactly. Thank you very much, End of Media, for sending that in. What a terrifying name.
That's
Strikes.
End of Media.
End of Media. Noclip will be coming to you from a TV screen within the fucking party bus or whatever. I don't know. David Lynch is driving still. Watch a documentary. That's a podcast, folks. That was 214. Hades Blu-rays. All the Battle Pass holders should have them sent out now. If you are one of those people who hasn't, well, I mean, you won't know if it arrives yet. Hopefully, you should be getting emails about it. I did it in a weird and funky way. I talked about it on the Patreon show this month. Also, we had a bunch of stuff on the Patreon show. We got clips from the Dwarf Fortress documentary. We have a clip from the Disco Elysium documentary, and the Everbloom one. Both of which Jeremy had been toiling away at the end of this year or the start of this year as well. The Everbloom series, we have not. I don't know if you talked about that publicly yet, but we basically about 2 years ago, 2 different studios. This is one of them. I started basically getting footage from a game that was in development with them, with the idea that we would do very technical videos. So one would be like, here's a 15-minute video about how doors work, or here's a 20-minute video about how character design works. And we filmed them. When was that, Jeremy? Was it December or November, maybe? I forget. We did the stand-ups.
I can't remember. It was like a couple months ago.
You've edited a bunch of these together since the start of the new year. And we're going to start getting them up pretty soon. So they're pretty awesome, little bit different to what we're usually doing. We had people ask us for years to do get a bit more technical. I was like, oh, this is probably a fun way to do it. Let's just cover a game and, here's 2 years worth of what it takes to make a character with all the gameplay for it,
Yeah, it's kind of like when we did the Dredge documentary, we were lucky enough that they had recorded
Right.
a ton of the development, but that is, sometimes we do a documentary and we get insane access to stuff like that. Sometimes we do the Dust documentary and the only thing we get back from back in the day is one picture of Dave as a teenager. Which is, that picture
photograph.
and made the documentary what it is, but it's it's nice when you have documentation, screen grabs of early builds and stuff like that. So yeah, having laying the track early and having a developer sort of record themselves opens up sort of more technical discussion. Those documentaries are interesting, the Everbloom ones, because they're some of the stuff that they talk about is very sort of accessible if you've never touched game development ever, and then some of it gets really deep very suddenly. So I found them interesting. I'll be curious if people enjoy the sort of more jargony technical aspects of certain ones.
Yeah, they're sort of. I'm interested in the balance because in a way I was I don't want to go too technical because then it'll feel like they're tutorials on how to make games and not videos on how a game would solve a problem. But I love the trees one, for instance, because the trees one covers so many different facets that you wouldn't expect, between LOD and sound design and graphics and how billboards work. I didn't know any of that shit. That was so interesting, and the density, and then what happens if you remove trees and how does that affect things. So yeah, there's it's pretty cool. A lot of really good stuff in there. So yeah, if you want to watch a clip from that as well, head over to patreon.com/noclip. Join us. The Patreon show goes out every month. This one's an hour and 10 minutes long. I wax philosophical about plans for the year and so on and so forth. And then we show a bunch of, we always show bonus features and footage and stuff like that. There is also a bonus podcast. We're starting bonus podcast. The first one should be going up. I don't know. I think it might be going up after this episode at some stage this weekend. I'm not sure. We'll have to check in with Jesse on that one. But we recorded it was a good 90 minutes at least, I think, maybe a bit longer, about basically our 2025 bingo cards of what we thought would happen in 2025. Some pedestrian guesses, and then some really outlandish guesses for what we think might happen this year. So the four of us are on that podcast exclusively for patrons over at patreon.com/noclip. You just plug your little RSS feed into your podcast player and you get access to that and all the other patron exclusive bits and bobs we've done over the year. There has been a chunk of them, but we're going to make that monthly now for the rest of the year and going forward. So that should be pretty cool. We're going to try and do interesting little stunt episodes with that. We've got some more developer interviews coming up as well for that, and bunches of other little bits and bobs. I will not be here next week. I am on vacation. I'm taking my summer vacation. The thing about living in Ireland, being from Ireland, is that you end up spending a lot of your vacations going home, and then we do a bad job of going on summer vacations. This year we're doing a road trip. We're going to drive from Yellowstone down to like Vegas. I'm going to drive to Yellowstone and the girls are going to fly, and then we're going to like road trip down basically through Utah and stuff in the summertime. Not too late in the summertime because we will die with the heat, but that's what we're going to do. So we decided to go on like our little summer trip next week. So I'm going to Hawaii for the first time. I've never been to the islands. Have you guys? Well, Frank, you obviously have. You're a big Yakuza fan. You go to Hawaii every fucking week. You nutball. Jeremy, you ever been over there?
No, I've always wanted to go to Hawaii.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be like. I'm guessing a lot of tofu. What should I? Oh, not tofu. Fucking spam. Sorry, spam.
Spam musubi.
What should I expect, Frank? What's the
Well, it's
what's the way to do
it's
it?
the midpoint between.
Is it warm in February there?
Yeah,
I hope so because it was cheap.
It's the midpoint between Japan and America, so there are a lot of incredible Japanese restaurants. There's also lots of book off. I know you're not going there for that, but there's a lot of book offs on the island, so get some cool anime figures.
I bet it's cheaper than mainland America.
Probably.
The book offs, and well, I guess it is closer to Japan, so who knows? I always assume that everything there is really expensive. That's because of tourism and island, because I know that was a big problem in Iceland, for instance. Everything is really expensive in Iceland because it's hard to get shit to Iceland. I bet cars in Hawaii cost a fucking fortune. I bet rental cars do.
I wonder if they have like a Cuba thing, not because of embargoes, but just because of accessibility, where like people keep old cars running forever or something.
Yeah, they can't get them off it's pretty far. Yeah, I wonder. I'll find out. I'll check back in. And if you thought I looked red on this, I got sunburned doing fucking yard work over the weekend, trying to get this house ready for these. We're getting some fucking goats in here. So I was digging trenches and pulling down fucking fences and stuff. That rhymed by accident. We got to name these goats. You guys got any goat name ideas? We got 4 goats. 2 of them have already been named though.
Are they pet goats, or are you gonna milk the goats, or are
they are ladies? But we're probably gonna keep. We can change if we want. We can eventually get them impregnated. I'll just do it myself.
I was gonna say that's like I feel like some people are like, yeah, I could get goats and have milk, and they're like, oh, you have to like make them pregnant. I don't know about all that shit.
Yeah, exactly right. And then they gotta have a baby, and then you gotta get rid of it, or keep it or whatever. So we're not gonna. No, they're like we're doing the fucking fake farmer shit, man.
They're decorative goats.
4 Nigerian dwarfs. Like, come on.
Oh, that's cute though.
Yeah, they'll be little ladies, little cuties. So yeah, they'll eat some fucking. They don't eat grass. They eat hay. They eat weeds and shit, but they don't eat grass. So.
Yeah, you should do like a theme name for all 4 or something.
I was just thinking, like, I don't know if anyone's ever named goats after anime characters, but you should name one Haruhi.
Oh, nice.
Haruhi. Who's Haruhi?
There's a series called Melancholy of Haruhi Suzuma, which is about a girl who believes in aliens and ESP. So she makes a club at her school for aliens, and she tries to get people to join, not knowing everyone who joins the club is an alien because they're trying to it's awesome.
That's amazing. I love it.
I think you should name them Hulk, Big Show, Sting, and Glacier.
Oh my God, Glacier.
Yeah.
The only problem is they're ladies, and those are all dudes. Big Show. Although Big Show could be.
I think all of those could all be gender ambiguous names.
Yeah.
You're right, actually. I'd love if one of them was really big, because then every time I went out, I could be like, where? It's the big. Every time she comes around the side, I fucking sing
the craziest Big Show fact. I didn't know this until I watched WCW Monday Nitro, but Giant, back at his WCW name, he came out to no music.
He just came out.
He just came out. And so, for the first time I watched it, was like, did they mute the track because of copyright? What's going on? No, he just walks out, which is an homage back to Andre the Giant. He had no music either, because the idea is he himself was such a spectacle that people cheering and clapping. But when you watch the telecast these days, it's like, this is so stupid.
That's awesome.
He just walks out and there's no music, and you'll hear Tony Schiavone there he is, the 7th wonder of the world. It's Giant. But it's like, this is so bizarre.
Did he have the one strap that's such a good look. I think that's so good.
He takes it off when he does the choke slam. He's like, and then
Coming out to no music is like an Andy Kaufman bit.
It's kind of genius. It's such a like what? So the first time I saw it, I could not believe it. I was like, did they mess up the audio track? And it's like, no, Giant came out to no music.
I interviewed him for GameSpot.
Oh, really?
Ago. Yeah.
Holy shit.
You can find it online, I'm sure, somewhere. Yeah, super nice guy. Shook his hand, and I wanted to do it just to see how small my hand was, and it was intimidating. Yeah.
I found out that he had the same condition, was it the gigantism, but when he was like 20 or a teenager, he had surgery on his like pituitary gland to like halt the growth of it. But it was like, he actually really would have been as tall as
big as Andre or so. Yeah, but then he probably would have had late life problems probably and everything else. Yeah, interviewing wrestlers. I feel like everyone who worked in games journalism for one of the big sites interviewed a whole bunch of wrestlers. Like I interviewed a chunk of them over the years, just at events and stuff. The most fun one I did was Sheamus, though, because he's obviously Irish, and Irish people just talk to each other like they're cousins. So, and I had seen him at a regional event in my hometown where he fought Raven back when I was like 16 or 17 or something. So like back in like 2002 or something like that, 2001, I don't know. So that was we did some fun reminiscing about that. He remembered the show in the Forum in Waterford in front of 200 people or whatever. It was a good he wasn't even top billing. He was like maybe fourth or something. There was another guy from Dublin who they were pushing at that stage. As part of IWW. Frank, if you get sick of heading to Japan, you want another island to visit, Irish Whip Wrestling was the name of IWW. It's probably, I'm sure it's something else now. That's where I saw Sheamus, whose name back then was Sheamus O'Shaughnessy, was his stage name then. So that was good. That was good times. All right, that's a pod. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening. Thanks to Jesse for putting this together. And we'll see you all, the rest of the lads will see you all next week. Bye.